How's it going, guys? It's Sean. We're back again with the commands of Christ. And today's an interesting one. If your right eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out and throw it away. Wow. That's a pretty intense command. If your right hand causes you to stumble, cut it off and throw it away. It would be better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. Now, I've heard that preached a lot of different ways. Some men say that Jesus meant that literally. Others say that it was figurative, that, it's really hard to stop sinning, and I've heard other people use it as, if it's relative to the body of Christ, and somebody's an eye and another person's a hand, and cut them off and throw them out, get them out of the church if they don't want to stop sinning. A lot of different things, but when you see him talking about the eyes, you look at what he says. You've heard it was said, "You shall not commit adultery," but I tell you, anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out and throw it away. So why would Jesus say this? And it's amazing to me how, people think that God is different, that Jesus is different. The Old Testament God isn't the same as the New Testament God. They're two different gods. And I would argue that, because Jesus uses parables. And what's interesting to me, in 2 Samuel chapter 12, when the prophet Nathan goes to David to reprimand him, he uses a parable to reprimand him with, just like Jesus did to the Pharisees. Just like right here in Matthew chapter 5, when Jesus is using parables, he used a parable through the prophet Nathan thousands of years back. And so we go to 2 Samuel chapter 11, the story of David and Bathsheba. This goes along with this command of Christ. Maybe this is exactly what Jesus had in mind as he was giving this command in Matthew 5. But listen to what he says. In the spring, at the time when kings go off to war, David sent Joab out with the king's men and the whole Israelite army. So in the spring, at the time when kings go off to war. So David stays home. They destroyed the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah, but David remained in Jerusalem. So at the time when kings go off to war, David remained in Jerusalem. God had a purpose for David's life, and David is kind of veering off and going into a different direction. One evening, David got up from his bed and walked around on the roof of the palace. From the roof, he saw a woman washing. The woman was very beautiful, and David sent someone to find out about her. The man said, "She is Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, and the wife of Uriah the Hittite." Then David sent messengers to get her. She came in and he slept with her. And it's saying that this is her time of the month. She was purifying herself from monthly uncleanliness, period. Then she went back home. The woman conceived and sent word to David, saying, "I am pregnant." So David sent this word to Joab, "Send me Uriah the Hittite." And Joab sent him to David. When Uriah came to him, David asked how Joab was, how the soldiers were, and how the war was going. And David said to Uriah, "Go down to your house and wash your feet." So Uriah left the palace, and a gift from the king was sent after him. But Uriah slept at the entrance to the palace with all of his master's servants, and did not go down to his house. David was told Uriah did not go home. So he asked Uriah, "Haven't you just come in from a military campaign? Why didn't you go home?" Uriah said to David, "The ark in Israel and Judah are staying in tents, and my commander Joab and my Lord's men are camped in the open country. How could I go to my house and eat and drink and make love to my wife As surely as you live, I will not do such a thing. Wow. Then David said to him, stay here one more day, and tomorrow I will send you back. So Uriah remained in Jerusalem that day and the next. At David's invitation, he ate and drank with him, and David made him drunk. But the evening Uriah went out to sleep on his mat among his master's servants. He did not go home. In the morning, David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it with Uriah. In it he wrote, put Uriah out in front where the fighting is fiercest. Then withdraw from him so that he will be struck down and die. So while Joab had the city under siege, he put Uriah at a place where he knew the strongest defenders were. When the men of the city came out and fought against Joab, some of the men in David's army fell. Moreover, Uriah the Hittite died. Joab sent a full account of the battle, and he instructed the messenger, when you have finished giving the king this account of battle, the king's anger may flare up, and he may ask you, why did you get so close to the city to fight? Didn't you know that they would shoot arrows from the wall? Who killed Abimelech, son of Jerubesheth? Didn't a woman drop an upper millstone on him from the wall, so that he died in Thebez? Why did you get so close to the wall? If he asks you this, then say to him, moreover, your servant Uriah the Hittite is dead. The messenger set out, and when he arrived, told David everything Joab sent him to say. The messenger said to David, the men overpowered us and came out against us in the open, but we drove them back to the entrance of the city gate. Then the archers shot arrows at your servants from the wall, and some of the king's men died. Moreover, your servant Uriah the Hittite is dead. David told the messenger, say this to Joab, don't let this upset you. The sword devours one as well as another. Press the attack against the city and destroy it. Say this to encourage Joab. When Uriah's wife heard that her husband was dead, she mourned for him. After the time of mourning was over, David had her brought to his house, and she became his wife, and bore him a son. But the thing David had done displeased the Lord. Well, I guess so. So you have this guy that is absolutely 100% committed to the kingdom of David at this time. He worships David's God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He has respect for the kingdom. He wasn't even, he's, you know, imagine how much he missed his wife and wouldn't even go home because it wasn't fair. That's how loyal he was to this man. And this man not only slept with his wife, but is plotting to kill him while he's completely devoted. Now, if you think that didn't upset God, you're crazy. I mean, this is absolutely disgusting, man. This is terrible what this guy did. Terrible. David was very favored with the Lord. I don't care how much favor you have. You know, David could have stopped. He could have stopped. He didn't have to look. He could have looked the other way. He could have went inside. And another thing is, he's at home at a time where kings are going off to war. He shouldn't have been home in the first place. He should have been a man and went out and did what he was supposed to do as a king and fight with his men and be on the battlefront. And that's one of the problems. Idle hands. Him having everything he wanted. Every single thing. And a lot of us think, you know, if we got everything we want, we'd be in good shape. And look where it got him. He was used to getting his way, used to getting everything he wanted, and he thought he owned the whole world and everyone. Took this man's wife, has him murdered. It's interesting. It's interesting what Jesus says through Nathan after this. The Lord sent Nathan to David, and when he came to him, he said, there were two men in a certain town, one rich and the other poor. The rich man had a very large number of sheep and cattle, but the poor man had nothing except one little ewe lamb that he bought. He raised it, and it grew up with him and his children. It shared his food, drank from his cup, and even slept in his arms. It was like a daughter to him. Now a traveler came to the rich man, but the rich man refrained from taking one of his own sheep or cattle to prepare a meal for the traveler who had come to him. Instead, he took the ewe lamb that belonged to the poor man and prepared it for the one who had come to him. And David burned with anger against the man and said to Nathan, "As surely as the Lord lives, the man who did this must die. He must pay for that lamb 4 times over, because he did such a thing and had no pity." Then Nathan said to David, "You are that man. This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I anointed you king over Israel and delivered you from the hand of Saul. I gave your master's house to you and your master's wives into your arms. I gave you all of Israel and Judah. And if all this had been too little, I would have given you more. Why did you despise the word of the Lord by doing what is evil in his eyes? You struck down Uriah the Hittite with the sword and took his wife to be your own. You killed him with the sword of the Ammonites. Now therefore, the sword shall never depart from your house, because you despised me, and took the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be your own. And this is what the Lord says. Out of your own household I'm going to bring calamity on you, but before your very eyes I will take your wives and give them to one who is close to you, and he will sleep with your wives in broad daylight. You did it in secret, but I will do this thing in broad daylight before all Israel." Then David said to Nathan, "I have sinned against the Lord." And it goes on. The child winds up dying. David, fasts and gets on the floor and prays and pleads with God not to allow the child to die, but the child dies. And David straightens out, and they're able to have Solomon later on. But this is an issue, this marriage with them was an issue the whole way through. David did not build the temple. Everything that Nathan had prophesied took place. David's son slept with his wives and everything else. This is terrible what happened. Terrible. And it's all from looking. So the question is, out of all that misery, would David have been better off with missing an eye? Maybe so. What's Jesus really trying to challenge you to do here? He's challenging you to go to him, to constantly go to him. No one is above lust. No one is above, how many times have we seen in our lifetime, seen something we're not supposed to be seeing because we're somewhere we're not supposed to be? Or even if we're somewhere we're supposed to be, at the same time, the devil will still put things in front of us that are no good for us. And what God's saying is turn away from it, look the other way, go the other way, do whatever you have to do to get away from it, because it's going to cost you. If you'd have went up to David and told him that he would do something like that, he'd have probably told you were crazy. But because sin is progressive, it led him to commit murder. It started with a look, it turned into adultery, and the adultery started with a look, it turned into an act, and the act led him to murder. And that's the point. And Jesus says it's better for you to pluck out your eye. If your right eye causes you to sin, gouge it out. So, anyway, in David's earlier life, when he was very close to the Lord, he didn't have problems like that, because spiritually he was where he was supposed to be, and we're no different. The God of David is Jesus Christ, is the same God that was speaking to the Pharisees and the disciples in Matthew chapter 5, the same Jesus that lives today, and he hasn't changed. And he wants us to turn to him and depend on him and to desire him. And we're all capable of atrocities like that. We're all capable of that type of heinous iniquity. Every last one of us is potentially facing that kind of judgment. So He wants us to focus on Him and to turn to Him and allow His Spirit to work through us so that we, can combat our sinful nature. Anyway, guys, I know it's kind of a sobering message today, but I just wanted to share that with you. I thought y'all would find it interesting that we see one of Jesus' parables through the prophet Nathan in the Old Testament, just like the New. Anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in. Y'all have a great day.